This election is one. It's a special edition of Change Management. We had a record-breaking black woman Zoom meeting. We had a record-breaking white woman Zoom meeting. We had white dudes for Kamala Harris. We had stars for Kamala Harris. We had Republicans for Kamala Harris. We had Gen Z for Kamala Harris. And as Mina and Kamala said, their mother told them not to complain, but do something. So they're doing something. Priyanka Chopra said that we are to live on our own terms. Kamala Harris said anyone who beats people down is a coward. And Meghan Markle, who started advocating for women at 11 years old, said that we must be able to find our dreams possible in the communities. Meryl Streep made a very interesting comment. She said that Donald Trump was ridiculing a handicapped person and imitating his disability. And that gave permission for everybody in the community to do the same thing. And that is the permission of evil acts and bad behaviors. But Liz and Dick Cheney are creating a permission structure by top Republicans supporting Kamala Harris. We're hoping that that will make us be able to enforce certain things all the way to the bottom of the community. So one permission I witnessed was I took my bachelor's degree off my resume and applied for an entry-level position. Went to North Palm Beach County to work. They called me in 2 days because I was applying for an entry-level position and I had been a supervisor in that same brand. Not that brand, but competitive brand. So I go to work. I had 4 days of what I call OFNA. I had a young person at the job saying some rude things to me, and I'm like, whoa. And then I went across the street where I'd also applied, and the lady was rude. And then a sheriff came into where I was working. He was rude, and then the housing staff from Delray Beach came up there. She asked me where I work. Well, I was terminated, but I call it 4 days of some strange behavior, and I had to give it an acronym. And because of toxic workplaces, I decided to work online, and I found good places to work online. But I think about the permission for people to bully somebody who's just starting a new job in such a personal manner. So the acronym is OFNA, and it represents by me being in Boca Raton and applying for a job in North Palm Beach County means that somebody stalked me all the way from Boca up there. And so I call it Obama Free Phone, Pre-Conquest, Bragging, Nigger Gang, Stalking, Bullying. Hence, the acronym is OFNA. And I say that kind of conduct which I get from the African American sheriff, the African American state trooper, I think it's permitted by white people. So that's WAPA, the acronym is WAPA for that. This is another permission. I was working down in Boca, that was my second job. So I'd go in really early just because I care about the business and care about the business owner. I'd go in like 2 o'clock in the morning sometimes. Well, 6:45 a.m. Saturday, March 18, 2022. Two sheriffs are down here in Boca. I had a negative experience with the sheriff out at Military Trail, but they didn't say anything to me. But for them to be down here at 6:45 a.m., I believe that It's some kind of tracking, I think. Then I guess they have permission to do it. Anyway, so my favorite for president was John Sarbanes. Senator Paul Sarbanes and Senator John Sarbanes, his son, they wrote the Sarbanes-Oxley law, and they tried to get For the People Act put through. So John Sarbanes had so many videos on YouTube about For the People Act. And video 4 is my favorite because it gives us some numbers. It said 300 million Americans against big money. And he went off in a lot of detail. I emailed him and then they emailed me that he had retired. But I tried to tell the public about how the problems he saw in Maryland are 20 times worse in Palm Beach County. And so I was thinking the worst scenario is that the 31 million rich people with big money will survive and 300 million people, which John Sarbanes was talking about, will die from COVID and other diseases. Anyway, so the probability of some of these scenarios, I thought of 3 scenarios. So these are what the robots look like. We have the humanoid robots too. But I saw some negative. Sophia, the robot from China that was bought by Saudi Arabia, they're really questionable videos of what Sophia is, the AI is delivering and communicating through Sophia. But the 3 scenarios are 31 million rich people with big money, with robots working and taking care of them, and 300 million dead. The second scenario is Donald Trump is president, 31 million rich people with robots working, and 300 million people with no benefits. And the probability with Kamala Harris is that there will be 300 million with benefits like Medicare and equal pay, etc. So who is working? There's that robot. It says that the AI is so advanced that it has imagination. Of course, Elon Musk told us about the singularity. And here are some tasks that they're now doing. Here's a robot nurse. Robots doing construction. That's a team of 4 robots doing construction. It's a bricklaying robot. But really, Kamala Harris becoming president is really empowering women to say we want our rightful place at the table, to be able to use our skills and get equal pay. And Trump is really exhibiting abuse, disposal of people, and misogyny. And we see all the different cases of it. We think it's a crisis. And the crisis is like people are being sent to do things. And the art of devaluing and degrading a woman. And the Republicans put in a Supreme Court judge that would take Roe versus Wade away. And the abortion clinics provide other health care for women. But it's also taking away autonomy over a woman's body. So how scent works. I think people were sent to my parents' house in Jamaica in 1967. This is how close the airport is to my parents' house. I remember first a big white man came to my house and my dad was a Cuban fighter, so he chased him away. Then the lady came and I started reading her magazines. And then the Jackson 5 came for a concert. So that is how they now built a Kingdom Hall in my mother's neighborhood. But I'm saying the organization sent them out to recruit people. And basically, essentially, they have 23 billion in land and buildings all over the world. So recently, I had a Jamaican guy who worked at Publix came and said something rude to me when I was getting my lunch. And this guy was sent to say something really rude to me, this guy right here. And then my ex-husband, he did not go to divorce court. And he sent this state trooper to ticket my Honda back to back. and tow my Honda. So, of course, these sheriff right here now, I feel like they must have been sent. When I worked in government, they were very positive and very nice to me when I bought a property in their jurisdiction west of Military Trail in the county. I came home at night and they were out there and they were pretty nice. So, but you have to be very careful because they have permission to do all kinds of things. I noticed that because that sheriff who came up to where I was in North Palm Beach County, I didn't need him to tell me anything about the work I was doing because he doesn't know what I do online from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. So, the art of degrading and devaluing a woman. Here's one now. Kanye West was married to Kim Kardashian. She had 4 kids, so 2 by surrogate. But this is his second wife, and he has her walking around nude with him all the time or looking like a whore. And this is him showing them how she has oral sex with him. And I really object to this. And I also say that somebody should complain or punish him in some way because that's his second wife. He's showing her very bad disrespect and he's degrading and devaluing her. But when I analyze the system and certain things which have happened, I can see that the art of devaluing and degrading a woman, I see the symbols of it. Now, your face is your identity, and Facebook has all our faces. And there's a company in communist China that has all our faces too in their database. So your face is your identity, and O.J. Simpson's wife was bludgeoned to death, but they also did facial mutilation and facial mutilation on Rihanna. And you can see this is like so symbolic of how society will degrade and devalue a woman by destroying her identity. So Meghan Markle, when she was 11 years old, she started speaking about the psychological attacks on women, and she addressed Procter and Gamble, and she spoke to Hillary Clinton and Gloria Allred complained about this thing. But we need to address it. When Kamala Harris becomes president, it does not mean that all these things are going to be removed or solved. But when we have attacks which turn into toxic workplaces where women have trouble working, then something has to be done. So I also was having a peace and prosperity event at Boca Raton Plaza Hotel on Sunday, and the Saturday before it, I was at a party in Hughes Park. There were 2 parties, and one of them was Omega Psi Phi Fraternity. I was listening to the rap music, so I asked this lady, I said, "Are you with FAU?" She said, "No, FIU." So I said, "What does your music mean to you?" The rap music. She said, "It makes us smarter." But I heard the lyrics of one song which talked about whores on their tippy toes. I think they think it's funny about on their tippy toes, but I didn't like the degrading and devaluing a woman into a whore. However, the Republicans overturned Roe versus Wade, so the Democrats are going to fix that. But in Psychology Today, Dr. Douglas Field said that humans are genetically predisposed to kill each other. So I guess we have to admit that first. The second thing, we have to admit that we have different cultures in the community. And so different cultures have different thinking styles and different expectations. So they might cause conflict with another person. Now, the larger part of the American population are hunter-gatherers. And Hal Draper said that gossip, ridicule, and ostracism are used as social controls by hunter-gatherers. He did that in a research paper in 1978, he wrote that. And then when the social controls erode, they become misogyny, which is the treating of women differently from men in social and professional settings. But there's more detail to that, but you have to look it up yourself. But what we're looking for is change. We want things to get better. I've seen really polite, respectful behavior among Jehovah's Witnesses with each other. I see the Chinese, Korean, Japanese, they show their part of their culture is dignity, respect, courtesy. I observe that, but people don't have to change their culture, but we have to try not to cause conflict. So what worries me is what people are getting away with and what they can get away with. So I have five sisters. So I look at the three sisters of Nicole Brown Simpson, and I contacted the Nicole Brown Simpson Foundation because I feel like they didn't have anything that really changed problems in the community. I think problems in the community got worse. So I observed that there are like, when I worked in government, I've had 4 government jobs. I observed that specifically the American government has gangs in government. I got a call from African American police down in Broward County, and he said, "We are the government." I object to that because when I worked for the European Union, the men were bringing tranches of money into credit unions for loans for small business. And I did the minutes, and I was sitting across from the men to take the minutes, and they act like public servants. They don't say, "We are the government." They're not the government. They're just servants of the government. So I'm back to the Brown sisters. They said after 30 years, the grief has not let up. I'm trying to communicate with these ladies that when I ask specifically African Americans about Nicole's murder, they say drugs was involved. When people can put a label on you like that and say drugs was involved, they are degrading and devaluing you. Then the next thing, they can kill you. They get permission to kill you because drugs were involved. I think that we need prevention by support system. We need to detect certain behaviors before they happen. What leads up to that? The American courts have been undermined completely when that Supreme Court Justice Judge took Roe versus Wade away from us. That means that was another way to hit women or take away women's rights and safety for women and autonomy over their bodies. So we have to do the work day to day and moment by moment. Are you being stalked? You need to notice the behaviors, because what these behaviors do is that they accumulate, get to the point where you may be killed too. So we're watching the Kamala Nomics, and she has spoken to a lot of people, but we worry that she won't be able to get as much done as she needs to do. They do say she's like a superwoman. That's really good marketing. And she's a proven winner. She has the best resume we have ever seen. Going from law school to, she was a prosecutor. Then she was a attorney general, senator, vice president, president. It's perfect path. But we want to see what can be done in the communities. So I had a contact with a Boca police recently, and I felt like it was very good communication. I told him I was trying to tell him the whole story as soon as I saw him, so he could put everything in context. But he responded to me pretty positively, but I still believe that a lot of things are happening in the community. I have people complaining all the time, and So something needs to be done. So I decided to be specific because I believe the Caribbean diaspora has a different culture, and I want to address the cultural differences of the Caribbean diaspora. So I looked at the migration patterns of people from the Caribbean. And my best friend from high school, she studied French with me, and she studied German, and she lives in Germany. I have two sisters in the UK, and I was supposed to go to school in Canada, so I studied French for 7 years with her. I've been in the United States, and I suppose being Cuban and Jamaican makes me have a lot of different kind of thinking and different kind of expectations than Americans. However, I'm looking at the research and the support system already built by the Caribbean diaspora. They already have Caribbean diaspora Lives Matter, and she said it's a powerful dialogue. I try to communicate with them, and she says, believe in your culture because it matters. Here was another site about Caribbean Lives Matter. So I determined that the only way that we could effect what needs to be done to change something would be by a delegation. I have a lot of evidence of problems, but I believe that I've been talking to Black Lives Matter and Time Done for a while. So I want them to gather all their data, Time Done to gather all their data. I want Caribbean Diaspora Lives Matter to collect their data. And the new group, which is called limited value, we need to collect our data. So the limited value group comes out of the complex concept and the underlying principle which was said by the police officer orderer in Seattle, Washington. He said that Indian graduate student was of limited value and we should just cut her a check. And there was a very bad protest about all of this. Of course, the newspapers carried this script, it was a dash cam that had the very bad comments on it, and they played it over and over again on YouTube. However, this is the protest that emerged, but Americans are famous for protesting. Here's one protest with fires, and they even get arrested at these protests. So they had a protest in Seattle, and then 2 weeks later, everybody goes back to the mall and drive to work and drive home, and then nothing has changed. So, first, we are reaching out to victims. Whoever is in the group called Caribbean Diaspora Lives Matter, in Time Done Group and Limited Value Group, and the people from Seattle who protested about that student. Please begin to collect evidence and videos, organize Zoom calls. George Clooney is married to an international human rights attorney. I think she became famous and a lot of students studied international human rights. So we have a lot of pro bono international human rights attorneys now. But the one I like is on LinkedIn. When she was 9, her mother was killed and thrown into a landfill. So we need a delegation to the attorney, and we need a delegation to the International Criminal Court, because the American court has been undermined completely. So the International Criminal Court recently had a verdict of $900 million. So that is some proof. I don't believe that the International Criminal Court was undermined. What I believe is that it went from 8 judges to 18 judges, so it improved. We are planning on a verdict of US $500 million. So the three groups which we're going to coordinate and have as a delegation is Caribbean Lives Matter, Time Done, and Limited Value. These are some verdicts from 2008 to 2022, 1 million, 500 million, 1 billion, 100 million, 1 billion. As I said, I don't believe that the ICC has been undermined because they went from 8 judges to 18 judges. If USA has to pay these fines, and then the group delegation speaks about these things, not on 60 Minutes, not on 2020, but talk to people in all the time through whatever media we can, we will stop cover-ups and we'll expose what's going on, and perhaps there will be some change. Myself, with my government service and civic duty beginning 48 years ago, I have my YouTube channel with everything I want to say to the court. Florida Atlantic University is a Trump supporter, and I actually met some students, Gen Z students over at McDonald's, and talked to them about voting Kamala Harris, and they said no, they're voting Trump. But you know, a school is a institution of debate and understanding, so it's about hearing the other side and being the devil's advocate. So I put my diploma on here because I remember that the best time of my life was when I was working at Walgreens and taking my classes at FAU. I had a very good experience. I even had a professor who worked for Siemens, and Siemens is a really great business model. But Tim Walz is really a great pick for vice president because the students love him and the Gen Z just love him. That's just some alumni talking about Tim Walz, how great he is. So Kamala Harris is emerging as the fighter, and she said we have to trust women. And Jesus in Luke 23:28-31, he showed empathy for the weeping woman. But there's a few cases where Jesus showed empathy for women. So I'm fighting for the 300 women in my family. I'm fighting for the millions of women in the United States and the billions of women all over the world. I do come from an opposing value system. We are interdependent. We took care of each other's children and we focus on education. And this is my little tyke, my son, with his great-grandmother at my mother's house in Jamaica. My mother bought a house right in front of the elementary school, and that principal's daughter was the first female PhD in engineering. So I do come from a different value system. So I will communicate with the Caribbean diaspora globally. And I do have a unique case because I had 3 different groups of Americans flying to Jamaica to impact my life at 10 years old. And I've resolved everything anybody has ever told me. I do say I'm grounded in the Jehovah's Witness Church because I don't take drugs and I do not get drunk. And I have a lot of discipline and I can take a lot of beating up. So I learned that from the Jehovah's Witnesses. But I just heard Doug Emhoff use the word, move the needle. And I was impressed with his words because move the needle means that you're going to make a noticeable change or impact. So I hope that's what Kamala Harris can do. There they are, Doug and Kamala. They're going to move the needle and make a change.